I was trying to figure out the complexities regarding Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I got to a point where I decided I'm going to create my own cryptocurrency just to see how it really works. You need three different devices where you run it on to get the blockchain to try and connect to each other. And I took Litecoin's code, which is available for free, and I copied it and I just changed basically the name and I launched it. And that's after that, I was sitting in my room alone with this, whatever I called it. And I thought to myself, this is interesting. What now? And then I realized, but nothing now. There's no value here. Anyone can create this within a couple of minutes or hours in your own home. Creating a new cryptocurrency and changing the parameters is nothing. The value lies in the network and in the people that's behind it and the trust. Any other cryptocurrency except Bitcoin will take funds from outside and they spend that to create community and the environment. As soon as those funds run out, it just disappears. It's not naturally from the ground up like Bitcoin that doesn't have a marketing team or a management team backing it.
Hello and welcome back to Bitcoin for Professionals. Today we have a special guest, Andre Van Heerden from AirBTC. Andre, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Nirolf.
Great, great. Thank you. Where are you based?
I live in a small town called Stellenbosch, close to Cape Town in South Africa.
Okay, nice. We're on very different continents. I'm based out of Dubai. I'm sure you know from the name Onram Mina, but it's great to have you. Thank you for making the time today. We'll jump straight into it. Andre, I know you're into Bitcoin, you're a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, but before we get into that, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background about what you've done in your previous life, pre-Bitcoin. Walk us through your career, your interests, and just a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in the suburbs of Cape Town, and my father is a property developer. And when I finished school, I went straight into the family business and spent about 10 years. We were into industrial and commercial properties, where I started basically as an assistant to my father, but later on I took on many of the tasks in the company. Then in about 2018, I came across the arbitrage trade in Bitcoin. It was just after the 2017 crash, and I realized that it sounded too good to be true, but you could buy Bitcoin in a European country or in the US, and then you can send it to an exchange in South Africa, and you can sell it for at that stage up to 8% profit. So it varied between 5 and 8%. Um, and I started doing that, and I realized, oh, but this this is basically it's like free money.
Yeah,
uh,
it's
the, the,
arbitrage.
the, yeah, the more volume you can push through, the more profit. And I started doing that, and it became quite profitable to such an extent that I said to my father that I don't need this job anymore on the property side. Um, and after about 8 months of that, I decided, but I'm making so much money on Bitcoin, I have to give Bitcoin. I owe Bitcoin to at least read up about it and find out what it really is and what it's really about. And I went to a bookshop in Cape Town in the Cape Town waterfront. There's a large shopping center with a very large bookshop, and I walked in there and I said to them, I want a book on Bitcoin, and they were like, "Ooh, they're not sure I should go and have a look there at the back." And I walked in there, and the only book there was that I could find was the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. We At that stage I had no clue who that was, and I thought this guy's got a weird name, but it looks like that's the only option that I have to read a Bitcoin book. And I purchased it, and I can still remember it was very, very expensive for a book at that stage. Normal books would be around 250 to 300 Rand South African currency in that bookstore, and that book was about 850 Rand. So it was almost three times more expensive than a normal book would cost. Anyway, I had all the money that I made from the arbitrage. So I purchased that book and I started reading it. And basically, every chapter blew my mind. and by the end of it, uh, I, I I was almost completely transformed into a Bitcoin maximalist.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, like a lot of people, the trading aspect or the profitable aspect of Bitcoin was kind of your hook that got you into it and interested. And again, time and time again, most of our guests, the Bitcoin standard is kind of the eye-opening a book that gets them down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So it's always great to hear. We've had Saifuddin, great guy, fascinating. I mean, he did really a good job with the book. But so I'm assuming once you got into the book, you put everything else on pause and you just kept digging deeper. And one of the things that people usually find their way to is Austrian economics. So for me personally, so I am classically trained in finance. My entire career has been in institutional asset management. I have a master's in finance, and not once did I hear the term Austrian economics. That's not what they teach you. So I had to unlearn everything I was taught. I worked as a trader and asset management to be able to comprehend Bitcoin. And that was a tough exercise. But I'm assuming you got into Austrian economics. Maybe you can walk us through that a little bit. What was it that grabbed your attention? What was it specifically about Austrian economics that really made you feel like, there's something missing in the current system?
I've been interested in economics my entire life. When I was at school, I wanted to become an economist, but I always had a big problem because I could never figure out the, the the things that I was taught in school and at university level in economics as a subject. Just a lot of those things just never made sense to me. For instance, um, well, like GDP. If you just look at GDP numbers, it's the alpha and the omega for any Keynesian economic. It's the first thing that you learn in when you take economics as a subject. Is the definition of GDP, what it is, and but something. So it's supposed to be a value of. It's supposed to measure the prosperity in society. They use that as a yardstick for that, but it doesn't make sense because, for instance, if I mow my own lawn instead of paying someone else to mow my lawn, that wouldn't show up on the GDP figure. But does that mean that I'm sitting without a mowed lawn? No. And there's thousands of those. Basically, the whole informal economy and everything that you do yourself doesn't show up in GDP. So it's a terrible measure for prosperity in a society. And I mean that's just one example of what's terrible about it. All expenditure is taken as is measured in GDP. There's a lot of expenditure that's not that doesn't add any value. Like if something breaks and you have to replace it, you're back to zero sum where you started. The money has been spent, but society isn't richer. The broken window fallacy. Um, and suddenly when I got into Austrian economics, everything just clicked and started making sense because they approach economics from a totally different viewpoint than the Keynesians. They see economics from the ground up. It's a combination of humans acting, and that creates an ecosystem that interacts with each other. And there's ways that you can look at that ecosystem and compare it to other ecosystems, and there's things that you can learn about it. Keynesians look as the economy as a homogeneous blob, and it's something that you can control. You pull a lever on this side, or you press a button on that side, and it spits out something that you try to change on the other side, which doesn't make sense to anyone that really thinks about it.
Yeah, so if we were to put it simply, Austrian economics is bottom up, and Keynesian economics is more, a top-down approach where you generalize human activity as rational people. But the reality is humans aren't really rational. Another metric that I love poking at, and I'm sure you do as well, is CPI. CPI in our world is, in my opinion, always, under calculated. And most people think it's just a simple metric that's been used throughout decades. But if you actually go look at the website, you'll notice that there are constant changes being made to how CPI is calculated. And then you start to question, why are these changes happening? Is it to paint a certain picture? But that's amazing. So you went through Bitcoin, Austrian economics, they click together. Now you understand more the basics of money from a more pragmatic approach, let's just say. What would you say was a key moment for you where it all clicked? Was there a specific event? Because in my case, for example, uh, I come from Lebanon, and the entire system collapsed overnight, wiping out everyone's savings. The currency hyperinflated. So some people it's pain, but other people there's usually some element, or it could be simply gradually, then suddenly. So I'd love to hear your views on that special moment if there was one.
I have two moments that I can clearly remember. One is I was lying in my bed one evening and reading the Bitcoin Standard, and as many people are still out there, you're under the impression that the money supply has to grow in order for an economy to grow. Um, and I can't remember exactly. I think it's chapter 4 of the Bitcoin Standard where Seyfried very succinctly explains why that's not the case. And I remember reading that sitting in my bed before going to bed and reading that and putting the book down and going just, oh my God, that's that that's the way it works. This is all nonsense. um, and there's another time after that where I I was still on a trying to figure out the complexities regarding Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I got to a point where I decided I'm going to create my own cryptocurrency just to see how it really works. And this was long ago, but if I remember correctly, you need three different devices where you run it on to get the blockchain to connect to each other. And I took Litecoin's code, which is available for free, and I copied it and I just changed basically the name and I launched it. And that's after that I was sitting in my room alone with this whatever I called it. It was a swear word. I'm not going to repeat it. Coin, and I thought to myself, this is interesting. What now? And then I realized, but nothing now. There's no value here. Anyone can create this within a couple of minutes or hours in your own home. Creating a new cryptocurrency and changing the parameters is nothing. The value lies in the network and in the people that's behind it, and the trust. Um, any other cryptocurrency except Bitcoin will is what people do is they take funds from outside and they spend that to create community and the environment. As soon as those funds run out, it just disappears. It's not naturally from the ground up like Bitcoin that doesn't have a marketing team or a management team backing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's so fascinating that you actually took a practical approach to explore other coins. Most people don't do that. Most people just read the narrative, consume the marketing material, and then they think, oh, this is the next Bitcoin because it's shinier, it has more utility. The word utility is used so sparingly, but at the essence, really, what really matters is the scarcity. And if you look at the trend in crypto projects, yours is one out of, I think, 13.5 million now, which reinforces Bitcoin scarcity. I was looking at fascinating numbers the other day. So Bitcoin dominance is at 64%. I think if you take out stable coins, which to a lot of people, they do have a use case because of the lack of volatility in like Lebanon, South America. But if you take those out, I think Bitcoin is 72% of the entire crypto market. I usually tell people it is the market and it's the only market you want to be in, right? But that's amazing. Maybe after this, you can tell me what you called the coin. I'm kind of curious. You piqued my
Yeah,
curiosity.
and Rolf, the other thing is that of those of that 18% that remains in market capitalization of other cryptocurrencies, a lot of that 80% is also nonsense because the true market cap really isn't what they say it is. They can create a billion tokens and then sell five of them for for $1 each, and then say that they've got a market cap of 5 billion. That happens every day. Most of those cryptocurrencies are like that, which is total nonsense. If they would try to sell those coins at scale into the market, the value will very quickly drop from $1 to zero.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now that we're touching a little bit on crypto, I have to ask you, I'm sure, as a Bitcoin maxi, as someone who's understood the economics behind Bitcoin, you come across a lot of your friends, family that start asking questions about all the other coins. What do you usually tell them? I'm kind of curious, what's your rebuttal on why they should just keep their eyes on Bitcoin?
I used to get into very long discussions and conversations with people about that, which I found not very successful. It just ends up getting into an argument with them where they, I think, by the time they walked away, they hated Bitcoin instead of liking it more. So these days, I just keep it short and I just tell them Bitcoin is the future, and I would usually give a couple of like key figures. Bitcoin is the best investment ever over the period of time. I would usually say, if you, in your opinion, how do you think it would look like if something like Bitcoin started from zero and took over as global reserve currency? Do you think that would happen within 6 months, or do you think it will take like 5 years, or do you think it'll take like 20 years? And then they would, for the first time in their life, start thinking about that, and then they would realize, oh wait, it's actually kind of doing exactly what it's supposed to do at this stage. You can't expect the whole world to just adopt a new technology like that within a couple of months or years. It should take like a generation.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because similar to you, I used to also get into those heated debates. I stopped doing that, but I've noticed a trend, especially this cycle. The seeds that were planted 3, 4, 5 years ago are starting to blossom. And I think one, the Bitcoin price is a huge factor in that from a marketing point of view. But 2024, with the ETFs entering the market, I mean, say what you will about the ETFs. I have my reservations personally, but they did bring a Bitcoin to the mainstream in terms of headlines, news. And now we're at a stage where nation states are starting to talk about Bitcoin as well. Uh, Before we jump into the part that's going to be quite interesting for me, at least, I want to learn about your business and what you've been up to now. But before we get into that, what would your views be on the current state of the economy, or in general, what's happening at the macro level? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the market's been reacting just to headlines, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it from an Austrian point of view.
I think I think that uh, a couple of years ago, I would have said that the dollar is on the way out, and something like gold and maybe a new BRICS currency and Bitcoin will start challenging it and replacing it soon. But if you listen to the guys that have been in the game for a very long time, some of the economists from the Mises Institute and guys like Larry Lepard, you realize that these people behind the scenes at the central banks and the government, that they're able to come up with new ideas and kick the can down the road for a very long time. And I'm not that optimistic that we're going to see a great crash or a very big change in fiat or in bonds uh, in the medium term. I, I, I'm leaning all the more to a slow decline. I think some areas will have more inflation than others, and Bitcoin will keep on steadily climbing, sometimes quicker and sometimes slower, and there will be ups and downs. But I think over a general long term, if you zoom out, it'll look like this, with fiat going slowly down and Bitcoin going slowly up, and surely there will be instances where markets are very volatile, going up and down, crashes of 20 and 30%, but markets usually recover after that. But I think that the general slow pace will will continue to go on. I'm not one of those moon boys who think that Bitcoin is going to go to 1 million in the next year or two. I think maybe 250,000 in this cycle is realistic. Maybe 500 600,000 in the next halving cycle. And I think the dollar will be there for a long time, slowly declining in value with inflation as it has been, and the other currencies a little bit faster.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at history, the decline of, for example, the use of silver took quite a bit of time. These things don't happen overnight, and I'm on the same page as you. I like to take a more pragmatic approach. So, also, I mean, even if Bitcoin pops all of a sudden, that doesn't mean overnight people are convinced in its value proposition. It's just going to correct back to where we are at the adoption cycle. And that takes time. But the good thing is, I like to say we're trending in the right direction. So we'll wrap it up on that front. Now, AirBTC, what is it? And I know you worked in property development. So I'm sure there's some influences there. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about AirBTC. Where did the idea came from, and kind of what inspired you?
So when I got all this newfound knowledge and drive about Austrian economics and Bitcoin, I wanted to find a way to work in the Bitcoin space. At that stage in like 2020, it was very difficult. You had influencers, you had a couple of like educators, and you had to be technical, a technical guy to actually do anything. Um, that has drastically changed in the last 5 years if you look back at it now. But I wanted to find a company that is Bitcoin only, that doesn't have a bank account, that's got nothing to do with the fiat system. Um, at that stage, that was maybe a little bit early, as the Lightning Network was still very difficult to use, a bit buggy. Transactions would often fail. To set up channels was difficult. In the last 2 years, that has changed drastically, and I think Bitcoin being used as a unit of exchange is going to pick up very quickly, with the ability the Lightning Network has given us in the last year and a half. If you want to go back, that it's literally that short. A year and a half ago, it was very difficult to do a Lightning transaction. Now it's much easier than a fiat banking transaction. My grandma can download any Lightning wallet and start using it now. It's a couple of clicks. Um, so 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 in my opinion, we need to get a Bitcoin circular economies going. We need to use Bitcoin as a unit of exchange. That's the next step. Um, we've all been stacking sats and sitting back and watching the price rise and trying to stay humble. But we're not going to defeat the fiat economy and banks and central banks by sitting on our Bitcoin and being rich. We need to start using Bitcoin in exchange, otherwise nothing will happen. So I thought about what types of companies can I start as Bitcoin only. And most Bitcoin companies out there are either like Bitcoin software, like a type of a Bitcoin wallet where you can use it to exchange or hold your Bitcoin, or it's fiat on and off ramps, like a type of exchange, or you get some people would say that competition for us at Travala, where you can buy things on with crypto or with Bitcoin, and then they basically just sell the crypto or the Bitcoin and give it to the service provider. So it's basically an exchange. They just cut out the extra step, right? Um, so I wanted to have to start a company that's Bitcoin only, but has direct ties to the real world and the real economy. And it was very difficult to think of something. I had a couple of ideas come up, but idea of a booking platform is very interesting. Was very interesting, and that's how I came to AirBTC. So we are a bookings platform, the same as Airbnb or Verbo, where people can list their properties and other people can book the accommodation. but we use only Bitcoin as a unit of exchange. So if you get to the checkout and you click pay, there's only two options. One is pay on chain, and one is pay with Lightning. And any normal business out there, if you're localized and if you can think of anything you want, whether you're selling furniture or fruit or art, if you're selling it for Bitcoin only, it's a huge negative because you're basically just cutting out 95% of your customer base, right? People who wanted to pay in fiat would have bought from you, but they can't, because they don't have Bitcoin. This concept of AirBTC turns that whole thing on its head, because um, uh, if you only use Bitcoin, that allows anyone in the world to list their properties on our site without us being in that jurisdiction, and anyone in the world can book without them being in any jurisdiction or having a credit card or correct payment with it for the area that you're in. So that all of a sudden gives us an advantage over other booking platforms, and not a disadvantage, which normal companies would have against fiat competitors. So we launched. I came up with the idea in 2013. I built a very small beta version, which we tested and ran just to see if anyone would be interested, because the idea sounded good. And the response that we received from the Bitcoin community and Twitter was phenomenal. We immediately got like almost 4,000 followers just from that in the week after we launched. And then I was like, okay, wait, it looks like we're onto something. And then I launched the full version, if you want to call it that, or the live version of AirBTC last year, the 26th of July. And we've been going ever since. We have just over 300 listings, mostly in El Salvador. We've decided to focus our attention on one or two areas to get a lot of listings in those areas, because and then if someone wants to visit their area, that particular place, they know they can find the listing on AirBTC, because we don't have a lot of listings yet. A lot of people want to go up and book, but if you go to the town that you're traveling to, the chances that there's a listing there is not good. So we're trying to focus our listings in a particular area and to try to dominate, say, that town or that market. But we are open worldwide. Anyone can list their property. If you're listening to this and you have a property that's on Airbnb or on Bookings.com, you're welcome to go into AirBTC and list your property.
That's really fascinating, because I get it. You are targeting where the market is right now, and there's a higher concentration of Bitcoiners that will visit countries that have a market kind of set up for it, like El Salvador. I would say, just FYI, I mean, in the GCC and specifically in the UAE, there's a really big, I hate to say it, but crypto community. So the usage of digital assets here is much more prominent in a concentrated area than in other places in the world. I've seen real estate listings where you can buy the property with Bitcoin or USDT. So yours is purely Bitcoin, on-chain, and Lightning. For those who are watching who don't know what Lightning is, it's a layer 2, so a protocol built on top of Bitcoin. Just an FYI on that. But that's really amazing and good on you. I love the fact that, you know how Bitcoin makes banking inclusive for people that, want a bank account. What you're trying to do is you're making booking inclusive for people who want to book but only hold, Bitcoin. And at the same time, I'm sure the fees from a foreign exchange point of view are non-existent, right? I mean, because when you book in Europe, I'm in the UAE, I have to convert the AED to euros, because people in Europe don't want AED or US dollars. So really love that idea. And I'm glad things are moving forward. I would love to see you guys here. I'll make sure to bring it up to some of my friends, because people here uh, purchase a lot of real estate just as an investment. There's no capital gain tax here. There's no income tax here. So people will tend to diversify a lot in the real estate market. And I think Dubai is known to be one of the cities that has the most concentration of cranes. Everywhere you look, something is being built. And it's not the locals that are buying it, because the locals represent 10% of the population. It's foreigners who are parking their money here. So definitely a place to look at. And I'll make sure to shout out AirBTC when I'm around people in the area as well. What's one of the biggest challenges you faced when building a Bitcoin company? I'm sure there must be some.
There's a lot. One of the things that we're planning to be on the forefront of is just convincing Bitcoiners to spend their Bitcoin. We get a lot of negative comments on X about Bitcoiners who say, "I will never spend my Bitcoin." um, um, this is a stupid idea. No one spends their Bitcoin. I think there's about like 40% of people, Bitcoiners out there that still have that mindset. But I think that's rapidly changing. I think 2 years ago that would have been like 80%. Um, and I think 3 years from now it'll be close to zero. Uh, the reason for that is because it just doesn't make sense. So if you own Bitcoin, and it's on a hardware wallet, you're a real Bitcoiner. Or even if it's on an exchange, let's say Bitcoin goes to 250,000. At some point you will want to spend it, right, or sell it. Um, do you plan to transfer it to an exchange, then sell it, and then pay capital gains tax on it? Then transfer the fiat to your bank account and then spend that on your credit card, or do you plan to just spend it directly out of your Bitcoin wallet? Which one of the two do you think you're going to do? I've never met anyone who said that they're going for the second option, or they're planning to go for the second option, right? So they will all spend their Bitcoin in the future. It's just a matter of time. Um, we're trying to get the Bitcoin circular economies going around the world, trying to make it easier for people to spend their Bitcoin directly. And I think in the next 3 to 4 years we're going to see a lot of companies try and do that, or projects. And I think the narrative in the Bitcoin community in general will change to spend and replace, or buy to spend, if you want to call it that, rather than just stacking sats and staying humble.
Yeah, and uh, you know, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is permissionless, and you can do whatever you want with your Bitcoin. That's the whole point, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of ironic that you get those comments, but people are thinking numbers go up and they might judge you because you're leaving money on the table. But what money are you leaving on the table? You're leaving fiat money, and you're using a ecosystem, right? So it's a double standard, if you will. Uh, One thing also that I like to think about, so we're stacking sats, especially more of the hardcore Bitcoiner. They're stacking stats over time. If the price keeps doing what it's been doing, what will happen is a higher percentage of their net worth is in Bitcoin. So I think every cycle we'll see kind of spikes in high net worth individuals that hold Bitcoin, and eventually they need to fund their life at the end of the day. And if they hold
Yep.
90% of their net worth in Bitcoin, what are they supposed to do? Not sell Bitcoin and not enjoy their life? I mean, so I love that. I think you're just early, Andre. I think you're just early, right? It sounds like similar comments to the early days of Bitcoin, but that's amazing. Who's your
Yeah, and
ideal? Go ahead, sir.
yeah, and I also think those kind of comments. I also felt that way at a certain stage during my Bitcoin journey. When I was like a year and a half in, I also said, "I'm just stacking. I'm never going to spend my Bitcoin." I didn't know. I wasn't at a stage where I realized that at some point I would have to spend. Right. I never thought about that before, and I think as people move through those stages of in their own personal Bitcoin journey, they would also get uh, to that end, right? So in a strange way, people making comments like that um, shows me at what stage in the Bitcoin journey they are.
Yeah. And don't we define Bitcoin as savings technology? And what are savings for? I mean, not just for generational wealth, but also for leisure and enjoyment. So at some point, your saving gets so big that, you don't want to also restrict your life and, spending on people you love, spending on yourself. So I love that. I just think we're early. Uh, I need to know from a persona point of view, what's your ideal user?
We we've looked at the analytics on our website and on our Twitter profile. These days, you can get quite clear information regarding that, and like 45% of our users are from the US at this stage, and about 60% of our users are typical Bitcoin bros like me and you, between 23 and 45 males. So I think our typical user is someone like that. I mean, anyone can use AirBTC, but males between 25 and 40 or 45 who are into Bitcoin, into finance. That's our general. Most of our users fall into that category.
That makes sense. I was just curious if there was some anomaly there or something like that. But yeah, that makes total sense. Great. Thank you for walking us through AirBTC. We'll make sure to include all the links and give you guys a shout out, because I think the more Bitcoin only companies that are providing a service, not just from an infrastructure, from a safekeeping point of view, I think just helps Bitcoin's value proposition in general. So good on you on that. What type of advice? Because you're a Bitcoin builder, so you're not just a Bitcoin saver, built in Bitcoin. Uh, if you were to give another builder advice that's mainly focused in the fiat world, what type of advice would you give them if they wanted to, or if they're curious to explore building on top of Bitcoin?
I always give the same advice to Bitcoiners. I don't know if you've seen that. There's that statistic about Bitcoiners' the mental personality profiles, where most Bitcoiners are either INTP or INTJ. Um, like 85% of Bitcoiners or something like that. There's, I think, 12 different personality types. Those two are the rarest, but almost all Bitcoiners fall into those categories. Um, and for that personality type, I fall in that as well. Is we love reading and learning, but we struggle to get to the point where we actually do. We have to be kind of forced before we act right. That's what happened to me with AirBTC as well. I started talking to many people about about the project, that at some stage I had to do something about it because they all asked me when is it going to launch. And I was gonna yeah. So my advice is always, we take our personality type tend to always find a reason not to do something. We always think, first I must learn this thing, or first that must fall in place. We all come up with the excuse, right? But my advice would be, just if you have something in mind and you want to do it, and you're listening to us right now, turn this off and just start doing what you wanted to do. If you have a new project, create a Twitter account for it, or create a Telegram account, or if you want to start coding on a project, log into create a GitHub for it, and start coding. Whatever the first step is, open up Notepad and start writing a business plan. Do it right now. Don't wait until the right moment or something happens, or when you'll finally be ready. You're ready right now. All companies and all projects start with someone acting, and no one is ever completely ready. You'll always be able to find another excuse not to do it. You must just start doing it.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because we get into Bitcoin, which is, early stage, early adopter type of thing. So there's a risk element involved. You get into Bitcoin, but then you want to work in Bitcoin or you want to build in Bitcoin. Then for some reason, that's a risk that you're not willing to dip your feet in, right? So it's counterintuitive for most people looking from the outside. They're like, "What? You're a Bitcoiner? You're crazy!" But they're building businesses. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Maybe you can give us, because you're knee deep into the industry as a builder, you've seen other interesting projects within the space. Is there a trend you're seeing? Because you mentioned earlier, most of the services and things that are being built are more for infrastructure related type of things. But is there a trend you're seeing, whether it's on Bitcoin or on Lightning? Um, do you have a bird eye view that you could share with us?
All Lightning technology and Noster, there's a huge blossoming in that space. I mean, if you just look at the last year and a half or 2 years, what that the Lightning space and projects using and involving Lightning look like and what it looks like now, the rate of change and acceleration in progress and in number and quality of projects is huge. I mean, I remember 2 years ago, you basically had to use Breeze Wallet. There's only one that worked. It was custodial, and a lot of people didn't want to use it. And then that was basically the only choice that you had. Okay, if you want to use Lightning Wallet now, you're sport for choice. There's like 100 different wallets to choose from, right? And not just wallets, but other integration software and apps within apps. I mean, it's just incredible the rate of change that has happened over the last 2 years. If this can carry on for the next 5 years, we're going to see incredible technology built on top of Lightning.
Yeah, that's good that you mentioned Nostr, which is another protocol tied to Bitcoin. I've seen a lot of development. I use the Twitter version or the X version of Nostr, and it's improved dramatically over the last year compared to when I got it the first time. So I'm glad things are. We need to build more on top of Bitcoin, and we need to talk about it more. Why? Because that kind of negates the argument that Bitcoin is just a store of value. And that when you focus just on that part of Bitcoin, all the other coins now seem like, oh wow, they you can do this and that with those coins. But the reality is, why would you build on anything other than Bitcoin? It's the most secure. It has the most compute power backing it, and the most political legitimacy. I mean, no other coin has that, so might as well just build on the monster of a protocol that is. But yeah, huge fan of that. Maybe we'll move on to a bit more personal questions. Uh, a lot of people, especially in the Bitcoin space, talk about how Bitcoin has changed not just their mindset around finances, but there was some form of change at the personal level, spiritual level, physical level. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Are you one of those people? Has Bitcoin changed you?
Definitely. I, I, I mean, I think it changed almost every aspect of my life. It definitely made me think different about the world. One of the things that Seyfedin uses this as the base for his teachings on Austrian economics is the concept of time preference, which is much more centric in my mind every day. Um, I'm trying to keep my time preference as low as possible and try and plan for the future and not spend my money or my time on low time preference pleasures, if you want to call it that. So it made me a lot less materialistic, I would say. And then also just by the culture around Bitcoin in general, being on Twitter and the people that you interact with um, on a daily basis, um, the things that they say and the way that they talk greatly influence my journey into physical fitness and health as well. Um, Coming from South Africa, I've always had a predominantly meat diet, which I was always told was very unhealthy. And a lot of people here still think that they see meat and fat as a guilty pleasure, which my journey to Bitcoin completely turned that on its head with the ideas regarding that. I don't know if you if your followers would agree with that. um, and then
Like,
physical fitness as well. I've always been concerned with my physical fitness, but the last couple of years I've really started getting into I started doing calisthenics, which I consider the lowest time preference exercise there is. When you start doing push-ups and pull-ups, it feels like hell, but as soon as you get into it, it's very rewarding and actually pleasurable, and you can track your progress very easily. And there's always a new step to step up to, a new variation that you can try. It keeps it interesting. And yeah, because you're only doing compounding exercises, you can do a full workout in 25 to 30 minutes, where if you go to the gym, you'll be hard pressed to do a proper workout in an hour, right?
yes, I love that because uh, calisthenics is underrated, and I think I know why. Because I've worked out at the gym and I've picked up calisthenics, and every time I do, you know, 4 months of gym and then 4 months of calisthenics, I end up just continuing with calisthenics. It is a really low time preference exercise because, and I think this is why people don't like it, because it's very painful when you start off. It's not comfortable.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
yeah,
only so much you can change when it comes to the weight you're pulling or pushing. I mean, it's your weight, and the bigger you are, the harder. But I love,
exactly.
yeah, and it the progression is nice because rather than say, oh, now I bench press 100 kilos, you can say, oh, now I can do a handstand push-up. Very
Yeah.
different. So I love that. Yeah.
It's
So
it's a great milestone to reach. I can still remember the first time that I did a handstand push-up. I can still remember the first time I did a muscle up. It was a massive achievement that I worked towards for years. When I started off with calisthenics, I couldn't even do one pull-up. So um,
yeah, you have
the,
to stick
the,
with
yeah, but that's the beauty of it. You can just do the variations. If you can hang on a pole, you can do a negative pull up. You just jump up and then you go down as slowly as possible. If you can do 10 negatives, you should be able to do one regular, and
and yeah.
then you've unlocked the pull up, and you can go from there. You can do one, rest a minute, do another one, rest a minute, and then you can do like 20 or 30 in one session. The next time you get back, after 2 days of rest, you should be able to do three. It's incredible how quickly you can progress if you do it correctly.
Yeah. And the results are always, it feels more natural, if you ask me. Proportionally, your posture, the size of, your muscle, it just feels closer to what we did when we were primitive beings
Yeah,
versus.
yeah. And I think your risk of injury compared to any other form of exercise out there, except maybe swimming, is very low if you do it correctly. Calisthenics is all about the right balance and keeping the right posture and doing your form has to be correct. If you do that correct from the start, you won't get injured.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely something to encourage more people to do. But we're getting to the final mark here. Uh, what legacy do you want to leave behind in the Bitcoin space?
I I think as I mentioned earlier, AirBTC, we plan to be on the forefront of the spend and replace narrative. In this next cycle, two Bitcoin halving cycles, I think that's going to try and change drastically. And I think looking back, uh, 15 years from now, we're going to be seen as one of the catalysts of that change.
The new pizza guys.
Probably not that significant in Bitcoin history, but
Um,
but yeah,
yeah.
one of the first companies, one of the first companies that was Bitcoin only.
And just for our audience, the pizza joke is a Bitcoiner joke because the first commercial transaction on Bitcoin was, purchasing two large pizzas at how much? 10,000 Bitcoin or something like that. Just
Yeah,
cracks.
something like that. Yeah, it would have been worth like $100 million now, something like that.
Yeah, but Andre, this was a pleasure. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Where can people find you? Where can people learn about AirBTC? We'll have it all in the description, but the floor is yours for a quick plug.
AirBTC.online is our website. Please go and check that out. If you're on there, I always ask people to please create an account. We only ask for your email address and your name. If you want to give it, you can even type in anything you want in the naming section. But we want to increase our users. And if you create an account, even if you don't want to book immediately, we sometimes send out emails about what's happening at AirBTC and specials we're running. And then you can also follow us on Twitter, AirBTC Online. We're on Noster. I think we're on Primal. It's AirBTC at primal.net. And you can follow me personally. I have an active Twitter account as well. It's my name, Handré van Heerden, or my handle is Handré and then a V. But yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time on. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'll be keeping an eye out for AirBTC, and I'll definitely open an account as well.
Thanks, Rolf. I really appreciate it.